Hello, today I'd like to talk to you about Philidor's defence. This is the position, so heading towards the Scotch game as we might, expecting knight to c6, black diverts with d6. Now, it's the sort of thing that I'd probably suggest not playing for black if you're in my club, just because this bishop is probably pulling a bit of a sad face already. But Philidor was the strongest player of his day by a long way, I think, and no mug. So if he thinks this is an okay way to play, well, probably it is okay. I mean, it's solid. I think it's hard to run over if black plays the best moves. However, there are some ideas here that are not at all good for black. So let's have a little look at the main line here. We run through d4, should be played just as you might play the Scotch, and now knight to f6, and the main line of the Philidor goes something like knight to c3 here for white, and now because of some complications that might happen, knight to d7 for black. And there are some follow-up moves, things like bishop to c4. Black might play c6 to keep control of the d5 square, threaten b5. We stop b5, bishop e7, castles, and this is some sort of game for white. You've got a little bit more space. You've got the choice of opening some files here and there, but black is immensely solid and it's not going to be run over. And a lot of it's not unlike a position that you get in the Rai Lopez. Black players who know this well often play it well, and it can be frustrating for white. You've got a bit of a space advantage, but a space advantage doesn't tell you what to do. It doesn't say play on this side, play on that side, and black can try and break out on the queen side or break out in the centre, and it's a bit hard to keep control across the whole board. So while I think these positions are slightly better for white, I do think they're difficult, and one of the main things about picking an opening repertoire is to pick things that are easy to play. So let's rewind back to move 4, knight f6, and try the other thing in this position, which is d takes e5, and I think this is well worth avoiding for black. Knight takes e4 here, queen to d5, hitting the knight. Knight to c5 comes, and now bishop to g5, bishop to e7 is more or less forced, and now e takes d6. And now white's got a small advantage no matter what black does next. It's a different game than the one that black was hoping for, and gives you a good chance of getting an advantage on either line. And black's got quite a big minus score here. White's just going to continue with moves like knight to c3, develop the bishop, castle one side or the other, and this is a much more open, easy sort of game to understand and to play for white. And so that stops black getting into the game that they want. So what else could black try? Well, this position with knights on black knights on f6 and d7, black can try and get into it the other way on, playing knight to d7 first to cover the e-pawn. But I think this way of playing it has got a bit of a hole in it, because knight d7 is so unforcing. You can play bishop to c4, and now there are lots of easy ways for black to lose here, which I'll put in a different video. Black should know enough to play c6 here, hoping to give the queen some air. There are some tricks where the knight sort of hops around to e6 and all sorts of other places, and black loses the queen. So just castle, and now knight to bishop to e7, hoping to stop knight to g5. But here takes knight g5 anyway, and now bishop takes g5, queen to h5, and you win the bishop pair in an open position, and I think this is really quite good for white. Black shouldn't want to play this position, and this is just better for white. No problem with that. After knight to g5, a much more A natural looking approach here is knight to h6, and I expect you'll get that in a game. But remarkably, knight to e6 here just wins for white. F takes e6, takes on h6, takes on h6, queen h5 check, and now king to f8, bishop takes e6, and black's dead. Very dead. So that's just an example of the sort of trouble that black can get into. I mean, it's interesting how two very quiet moves like so pawn to d6 and knight to d7, and suddenly black's on the facing defeat. It's really a very difficult position to play for black early on with this knight to d7 move. So the next idea that black had was to play the moves in yet another move order. So we'll start off e6, d6, d4, knight f6, knight c3, and now either e5 trying to get into Philidor lines, or knight on b to d7 trying to get into Philidor lines. I mean, if you know and you like the main line of the Philidor for white, well, off you go. Couple of ways of avoiding it here for white though. f4 would be sensible, and after e5 knight f3, and then I think the game should play itself a little bit. We'll open up the game twice here. Knight to g4, and now you can't keep the pawn, but you can make a mess of black's pawns by playing e6, f takes e6, knight to g5, hitting the knight on g4 and the pawn on e6, and I think black's just in a bit of a mess here and has a worse position. Black shouldn't want to play this. Another way of avoiding the main lines of the Philidor is to play a sort of an English attack set up with bishop to e3 and f3, and so we're going to castle queenside very quickly and launch on the king side. If you know anything about the English attack in the Sicilian or the Yugoslav attack, this is straight out of that book. We're likely to get opposite side castling and opposite side attacks, although the black king is actually stuck in the middle at the moment. So you know, exciting game where actually black looks as though they're attacking about as hard as we are, but this position too is reckoned to be good for white, and perhaps easier to play for white. We could have kept the knight out of c4, but the computer says c4 and takes, I think, and black's going to struggle to hold things together. So two alternatives there for playing the white side. I mean, personally I quite like the f4 idea. So the other idea of trying to play for Philidor lines is with e5, so d6, knight f6, e5, and now white's faced with a bit of a problem in that takes on e5, takes on d8, takes on d8, which is incredibly natural and really ought to be better for white. Doesn't seem to be better enough. Bishop G, I mean, the computer likes playing this way, but if you look at the statistics online, at all sorts of levels of chess, black actually wins more games than white here, which is a bit mystifying, but maybe white's trying too hard, or black just knows the position better, or maybe this knight on c3 isn't as well placed as you'd like. But there's no doubt that, you know, so the statistics say actually black wins more games than white here, for no reason that they should. But if that's true, well, perhaps we should avoid it. I mean, the position's gone a little bit flat. You can give it a bit more fizz by playing f4 here instead of knight f3, just to open up some lines, and that seems to score better. A little bit earlier, after e6, Chris Baker likes g3, again going for maybe an f5 idea, although perhaps no more than equal. And if you're going to play f4, I mean, why not try it on move 6? So take the pawns, take the queens off, and then f4. And this may just get no theoretical advantage, but just a sort of position that might be easier for you to play and a bit more open. White white got a very quick advantage, and black got into a mess in this game by somebody called Haas against Moser a couple of years ago. And you know, this is nice and easy to understand. The black knight on h6 is going nowhere, and we've got an extra pawn. This is just better for white. So that may be maybe another idea, just to keep it open and keep it more in your style than in black's, which one of the points of an opening repertoire. So I think that's about all to say about Philidor's defence. The main line of the Philidor, I think, is better for white, with knight to f6 and you take on e5. So this position, I think, is just better for white. The old Hannum variation is better for white and actually really dangerous for black. So if black is playing the Philidor these days, it's usually with one of these funny move orders when you actually don't get the Philidor either, but you might get a position that's is not easier for white to play than for black. Anyhow, plenty of ideas there how to play white against Philidor's defence.